You're watching Global Trade This Week with Pete Mento and Doug Draper.
Hello, everyone. I am Pete Mento, and as is always, with me for this incredibly exciting episode of Global Trade This Week, brought to you by Cap Logistics, is the ammunition to my handgun, the gas to my combustion engine, the why to my what for, Doug Draper. Doug, it's great to see you, pal.
Yes. Yeah, it's good to see you. It's a heck of an intro. I appreciate it.
Partner. What can I say?
Yeah, it's good. I'm excited about halftime and my topic. I'm on a high after this weekend, and that's all I'm going to say, because the halftime is going to roll it on out. So it's good.
Well, whenever a guy from Colorado says he's on a high after this weekend, it just really opens the door to a lot of jokes.
Yeah. And then I have some experiences related to one of our topics. So I am totally stoked about personal experiences related to our topics today, which is great examples, which how I learn and understand things. So,
wow, so much insight, Doug. So much insight into the world of Doug Draper.
Yes.
So with that, pal, I opened, which means you get to start with the first topic, and we've got some pretty interesting show notes. After halftime today, Doug and I are going to merge, much like Voltron. We're going to merge our two topics into one Uber topic,
yes,
and really just get into it. So with that, Mr. Draper, why don't you go ahead and make it hot?
Yes. So I was having lunch with a buddy. This is not related to what I just said, but I was having lunch with a buddy last week, and this may define our age. But I had two menu options. I could scan the QR code, or he says we have actual menus. Okay. And I'm like, get this QR code out of here. I want something I can hold in my hands. But I ultimately ended up doing the QR code because I had to zoom in to see about the blackened chicken sandwich and what that was included in it. So that got me. The point of that story is QR codes. So this topic is really about QR codes in our supply chain, specific to a couple of things that I think could really have an impact. And it's one of those, I guess it's the modern day version of RFID that was kind of the thing. I was about to say a decade ago, but I think it was 15 years ago, maybe more, where everybody was going to have RFID. It was going to be mandated by some of the big box retailers. It was going to solve the problems of the world. And so I think that QR codes are going to provide some tremendous amount of insight, data analytics, which will help with understanding consumer behavior, which will impact supply chain decisions, and also just the mundane trackability. So QR codes, here's some examples. I said I learned with examples. Number one, satellite triangulate. Satellites can triangulate location. It can be passive, but it can be identified. So you can print a QR code, and this technology, I believe, is out, or it is out there, but it's going to be refined and expanded. But so you print a QR code as the last thing off of the fulfillment or the e-commerce pick line that can then be used to figure out where this shipment is. It doesn't have to be scanned. A human doesn't have to engage with a device to scan it and then upload it. The QR codes can basically do that on their own. Infancy, lots of opportunity for expansion and efficiency. As I mentioned, the humans can scan it as well, so it's going to a DC that may have concrete walls and may be difficult to identify and get that triangulation. That is one hell of a word. So it can be read by satellites, it can be scanned by humans, and so those are things that's going to happen. The benefits of it is that simple awareness of where things are and people understanding that you can track where your shipment is a deterrent to crime and theft. So there is enhanced security with that in and of itself beyond knowing where your product is. The data capture, I think, is the cool part, because with the QR code, it doesn't have to be on the physical product, it can be on the packaging, either external or internal packaging. And you can sit there and ask the consumer and incite them to scan that code with additional discounts on the products they just received. And you can pose questions to talk about the supply chain and logistics experience, whether that's final mile, whether it's duration of time of order until you receive a tracking number of something like that. So the QR code market survey may be the right word, specific to supply chain experience, which in turn can identify opportunities for enhancement, whether that's final mile options that can be enhanced through the consumer. So data analytics, which is what we've spoken about many, many times before, that you can engage through an incentive, through a discount or something for the end consumer to provide immediate feedback. So dynamic QR codes and the ability for them to provide data and analytics is coming. And I don't think, this is my prediction, that it's going to be quite a disruptor. May not happen next month, but I think that you're going to see the adaptation of QR codes in those different forms growing, and companies that provide that technology really accelerating in the next 12 to 18 months. So QR codes, wave of the future, my friend.
Doug, I agree and I disagree, and I hate QR codes all at once. So there have been many characters on television that I really love, but probably my favorite is Ron Swanson from Parks and Rec, and I really do. Are you familiar with Ron Swanson?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, there's some great one-liners that guy's come up with over the years.
There are, yeah. And Doug, I can see how you also would probably really relate to old Ron. And
I'm not sure you believe me, but I know Ron Swanson.
No, I do.
Okay,
I do believe you. I mean, we're older guys, we're fathers, we work, we get frustrated by the government. I mean, there's a lot of things you and I have in common with Ron Swanson.
Yeah.
But there was that moment when there's a great scene when Aubrey Plaza's character April, he calls her in and he says, "There's this. I'm trying to order something and it knows my name." He says, "The computer, it knows my name. It's saying, if you want to save an extra 20%, Ron Swanson, just click here." He's like, "How does it know my name?" She says, "Well, these things called cookies, and it gets to know you over time." And she says, "If you really want to freak out, put your address on Google Earth." And he does. And the next scene is him shot putting the entire computer, like the entire thing, into the dumpster as hard as he can. And he's so freaked out over the computer, The way that we have seen this leap and bounds of the amount of information that can be held in such a small amount of something. And when I first started to learn about QR codes, the way someone explained to me was, it's just basically a way for, in a pictograph form, someone to put a very specific URL code without you and me having to say, "How do you make this contraption work?" And HTTP www. whatever // ... It's just, you take the picture and it sends you where you go. But it's also an interaction between a company and me, or a company and Doug, and who knows what that interaction is doing between my digital device and this company, damn it, and what sort of information they're pulling from me. And that, like you said, it's gathering information, it's allowing for interaction. Well, maybe I've had enough of interaction, Doug. Maybe I don't want any more interaction. As we were talking about earlier, you're talking to a dude who's many occasions thought about just exactly how remote can the cabin be that I want to buy away from everybody else. And all joking aside, there is tremendous. So, that's the negative side of it. The positive side of this is some of these QR codes from an anti-theft, anti-counterfeit standpoint are incredible. Being able to make a application on a phone, application on a scanning device, where that QR code can only really be read by something that's been cleared to read it. So if you're a transportation company or a consumer, and the ability to know what's in that package or to track that package requires a very specific piece of software on a very specific type of phone, you've now transcended just being able to point, click, and read a menu. Now it's point click and being able to read what's in that manifest, or maybe there's a hierarchy where Doug can read stuff that I can't. Doug's able to see things on that QR code that I can't because he has a security clearance based on what the originator of that code has decided. There is a lot to be said here and a lot to be gained. And I agree with you. It's a lot deeper than just a weird little barcode on the outside. And I think the pandemic, for a lot of reasons, because nobody wants to touch anything, has accelerated the growth and the applicability of this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the acceleration and the adaptation. So, agreed, my friend.
I'm going to throw this computer in the dumpster one day and then go eat a pound of bacon like Ron Swanson. It's going to happen.
I love it. All right, let's flip the script. What's your first topic for today?
Yeah, man, there's so much to it. I had to have notes, but it is Christmas in July. This week is Economist Christmas. It's a big week of information that is coming out that has a lot to do with what will be happening over the course of the next 12 to 24 months with regards to our economy and how we're able to gauge how things are going. These are the types of numbers that they happen, and you're like, oh, yeah, consumer confidence is at so-and-so, and you're like, oh, yes, of course it is. And, inflation, it's, most people realize inflation when they're done filling up their car or when they go to buy chicken and it's 107% more than it was a year ago. That's how you interact with inflation. Or when they go to get a mortgage is when they realize that the Fed fiddles around with interest rates. They don't understand how all these things culminate into having their foot on the throat of their business, the foot on the throat of their wallet, the foot on the throat of their lives. But this week, all of those things kind of come together, as they do most months, to be positively awful. So today, the consumer confidence numbers came out, and they were worse, as you and I were talking about before we got started. Add on top of that Thursday, we're going to see the eye of the real hurricane here, which is an indication of the economy either growing, being stagnant, or going backwards. And if you know what a recession is, that's normally speaking, 2 quarters of negative growth. And you've already got the White House through its spin doctors saying, well, normally that's how we would define a recession, but hey, never had one with job growth like this. Never had one with wages being steady like this. How can you say we're in a recession when everybody's working? So there's a lot of spin doctoring going on where they're saying new economy, new rules, new definitions. And I say bullshit. A recession is a recession. And if we're in one, it doesn't matter how it's being consumed by people. It is what it is. And if those numbers are negative, you're going to hear some madness, Doug. You're going to hear people on the conservative side of the economic world saying, welcome to the recession. It's all the White House's fault. You're going to hear people from the White House saying, it's not a recession. Everything's fine. Sort of like Kevin Bacon in Animal House when they were, when everything goes crazy during the parade, it's like, remain calm. Everything will be well. The reality is, folks, that no recession is ever one president's fault. No recession is ever one year's fault or one decision's fault. It takes a very long time for everything to catch up to itself and for these things to happen. And then the last thing I wanted to make sure is that we talk about 2 things. Wednesday, tomorrow, you're going to get the Fed's reaction to the prime rate. And if it's going to go up or down, will it be the 3/4 of a point? Will it be a whole point? Are they going to totally freak out based on the inflation numbers that come out? We'll find out. And then Friday, those inflation numbers, I'm telling you, Doug, every indication is that the inflation numbers are going to be even higher. And this is one of those situations where politically people are demanding action. They don't understand it. All they know is it's killing them. It's killing them at the grocery store. And that there are all of these things that have to do with our business that are causing inflation to be worse. There's all these things that have to do with our business that are desperately negatively impacted by the cost of all these things, whether it's fuel, whether it's pay. So much of the supply chain is human beings still. And human beings are demanding more money, which increases the cost of transportation and logistics, warehousing, all of it. And interest rates as well. You want to build a warehouse, which we need desperately? Guess what? You're going to have to pay more for that insurance, for the mortgage cost. You want to buy yourself a new truck? going to cost more for that loan. And there are a lot of people who are financing repairs on ships, on warehouses, on trucks, and that's going to rise up that cost as well. Mm-hmm. So this is Economists Christmas week. I just wish it made me feel like singing, drinking hot cocoa, and being cheery. There are no presents under this tree, pal.
All good points. The one that I'm most interested to see how people react is the inflation numbers on Friday. And I say that because it's tangible, right? A 3/4 point or a 1 point raise. If I'm not buying or have a large purchase, it doesn't really affect me. Inflation affects every single person, regardless of status, religion, political affiliation. So that one I think is going to have the most. The other two are going to be spin doctored both ways. It'll create a little bit of confusion. It'll generate more frustration. There'll be more opposition. But I think the inflationary number on Friday is going to be the one that is going to be the most telling on what transpires. It would have been interesting to have the inflationary, if all this stuff's going on in 1 week, throw the inflation numbers on Wednesday and the interest rate on Friday, right? I mean, it's not like they're going to gain any more information in 48 hours. So, I don't know. I was just flip them around. I think that would help with the decision. Wednesday's release would help with the decision on Friday. I think if you flip those two reports, they'd be more impactful to the general consumer.
I agree. So. Yeah. I completely agree, Doug, but I think that there's some thought like that. There's some intention that goes into that decision. And I think that over the course of the next 60 days, something that I would really start looking at is you have a lot of earnings releases that are coming out. You have a lot of technology companies, a lot of retail companies, a lot of newer e-com companies that are beginning to release numbers that are less than favorable. And and a lot of these places are in more expensive real estate areas. And one of the things that had always been consistent in this economy was very expensive real estate has always moved. So San Francisco, Boston, New York, Chicago, Seattle, Portland, Oregon, $1 million apartments, snapping up left and right, condos, $2 million. And you take a loan against the value of your shares, you sell your shares to get that loan, and then you go and you buy these houses. Well, they're not moving like they used to. A quick search on Zillow in San Francisco shows that, one in Boston as well. These $2-3 million homes, 1.5, 1.7, 1.1 through there, condominiums, apartments, not moving like they used to. There's a reason for that. As a matter of fact, we're going to start seeing those homes come on as people use they buy these as something that they put into their portfolio as an asset. So you're going to see people start selling those for cash and starting to use that as something to hold on to, as that is being their last resort for their finances. You're going to start seeing that because interest rates are so high, inflation has gotten so bad, they need to actually get to the cash. And I'm telling you, Doug, a month and a half from now, I'll be shocked if I'm wrong about that, but the luxury real estate market is about to see a real punch in the nose.
Yeah, interesting take. All right, the most entertaining, the topics outside of halftime are informative. Halftime's really entertaining, and we got to have that with our audience. And of course, it's brought to us by Cap Logistics. Please visit caplogistics.com or capworldwide.com for services in our industry. So, with that being said, you know what? You go first because it's going to be confrontational, and then I'll end on an interesting note. So.
Doug knows it's going to be confrontational because I'm talking about one of his favorite topics, drones. Doug hates drones like I hate the Atlanta Falcons and the Dallas Cowboys and the New York Yankees. Doug hates drones like I hate salad. Like Doug hates drones, right? So, Doug, I don't know how to break it to you, bud, but I think it might be time for you to wave the white flag.
All right, fire away.
It might be time, and here's why. So there are a number of companies, not the least of which is a company that is owned by Google, or Google's parent, right, Alphabet, based out of China, who has now, in very cost-effective nature, been able to make reusable, extremely nimble, and easy-to-use drones that are delivering up to 7-pound payloads hundreds of times a day. all over the world. Now, way above and beyond that, the drone industry in Asia is approaching $50 billion in profits for commercial uses. You had stories last week of how drones were being used to bring life-saving medicines all over the world, how drones are being used to actually transport people now. So pilotless drones to transport people where helicopters would have been sent in the past to get them where they need to be. If we can trust people, we can certainly trust cargo. And now you have companies like Tesla and companies like GM and the such that are beginning to create cargo driven drones just for cargo, and people who are starting to design drone ports just for cargo. Doug, I'm telling you, you're going to die on this hill alone if you don't get a little softer on it. The change is coming, pal. Mm-hmm. The change is coming, and it's got a big D on it for drones, Doug.
Those are all really good points, Pete, but drones are stupid.
I say to you, your technocracy is dead on arrival.
That's all. Until a drone can move like really substantive weight, I get medical. Okay, I will wave the white flag on that one. You need to get some medical stuff to somebody that's in a very rural area that weighs 7 pounds. All right, that's pretty limited. Maybe some medication or something, but I just don't. I don't see it. The weight. There's so much more in the world. That there's so much minimal amount of stuff that weighs 7 pounds or less. Before it was 2 pounds and 3 pounds. Pop that up to like 70 pounds, and maybe we'll have something here. And the other thing that the security aspect of it, right? You got kids that are going to be popping off, trying to shoot them out of the air and things of that nature, and the regulatory problems that are coming up. I think there were some issues with Amazon drones. So anyway, I'm not there yet. I'm on the hill. I know there are people behind me. I got a William Wallace type of a mentality against this one and charging it. So not there yet, my friend.
Doug, I love your tenacity. I love it. You are Grandpa Simpson, just shaking the cane at everybody at the old folks home. And I have so much love for it, pal.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead, Doug. What's up?
All right.
Hit me with your halftime.
All right, man. So this is a story about how a flamethrower can really help divine the importance of friendship. So I'll keep this one super sweet, short. So this past weekend, I went to a college reunion, and I was, as you know, I was in a fraternity. I'm a believer in fraternities. If they're done right, they can be very beneficial. There's 23 guys in the class that I went through. 19 showed up at one of our friends' house on a lake. So out of 23, 30 years later, 19 of them showed up. And it wasn't all Kansas City guys. There was, literally LA, New York, Miami, Chicago, Denver. They all came in. And, the first half of it was telling nothing but stories. And I was literally crying because we were laughing so hard. And people like, I don't remember that story. And just, it was amazing. The camaraderie, and we picked up right where we left off. And fraternity or no fraternity, if you have a group of tight friends and you have that experience, it can come together. And then the second half of the weekend was really get into conversations about how your career has gone, what type of things did you miss out on, what are your biggest fears as you get older, and some really heavy, type of discussions, which helps perpetuate the trust of friendship. And when we do this again in 5 years, we'll keep relative dialogue moving forward and having a general care for one another. And when I was flying back on Sunday, it just helped validate that having a core group of friends, wherever they may be, is just important for the health and the psyche of an individual. And don't take those for granted. Reach out. It's even easier now to stay in contact. I know there's group texts and everybody has funny memes they send to their buddies and all that kind of stuff, but don't underestimate the importance and the value that friendship can bring to you, your health, your psyche, and moving forward. So I had such an amazing time. So here's where the flamethrower comes in. So the guy that hosted the event is one of those guys that has everything. You name it, he's got it. Doesn't matter how quirky it is. He's got this massive smoker. He's got every toy you want on the ocean or on the lake. He's got this amazing Sonos sound system where you literally just walk into another room and the music follows you and everything else. So collectively, we got together and said, "What do you get somebody that has everything? You get him a flamethrower." And he was coming around on a boat ride at night whenever he was taking some of us or some of the guys out. Turns the corner, we crank Hell's Bells from AC/DC, and we fire up this flamethrower. That costs like $1,200, right? This thing is not, something small. Shoots like 35, 40 feet in the air, and just fired it up, and everybody was screaming, and we were acting like kids. And genuinely, our friend that hosted came off, and he's like, "This is perfect." I mean, he was a little buzzed, but he was almost in tears about how generous it was for his friends to think of something out of the box to give to him on such a special weekend. So anyway, that's the flamethrower connection to the thing. But don't take your friends for granted. Stay connected, stay relevant. And I had one hell of a weekend, and it was great.
Doug, I went from this moment where I'm like, this is some real Dr. Phil stuff, What I'm saying to you is you need to find opportunities to embrace your masculinity and your friendship. Doug, do we have to have a talk about responsible flamethrower ownership? Like, what type of group of middle-aged men buy each other? I know they're unregulated too. I know there's no regulation on flamethrowers. Like you can just go buy one.
That's what we did.
Like, so there you all are, half in the bag, playing with fire.
Yep.
This is why we can't have nice things, Doug. This is why we can't have nice things. Decisions like this. Yep. So, way to go,
yes.
bud. Yeah.
Well, the fuel is 60% gas, 40% diesel, and it shoots out this spray of liquid fuel in order for the flame to catch. It's an instant. But anybody that was down on the fire pit area flaming this thing, you just walk away covered. It was like napalm, man. You're just covered with fuel. But it didn't matter because we were with my buddies having a good time.
Having a good time, just play with a flamethrower, half of the bag, like responsible young men.
Exactly.
Yeah. Next year we're going to buy him a fully automatic AK-47. Just maybe some claymores.
Yeah.
It's guy stuff.
Yeah. Well, 3D print that.
All right. Yeah.
We'll see how it goes. Anyway.
We'll see how it goes.
One hell of a weekend.
Well, that was halftime. Yep. Yeah. That was halftime, brought to you by our good friends at Cap Logistics. And as promised at the beginning, we have a combination of our last. We're putting it all together. You're putting your chocolate in my peanut butter here. We are mixing my Stolichnaya with your 7-Up. So, you want to kick it off, Doug? How do we want to do this?
I'll kick it off. I think mine's a good leap into it. Then we'll go. Anyway, mine is simply like, why are ocean containers or ocean carriers suddenly getting into the air freight business? Going from the high seas to the blue skies. I think we've seen a lot of discussion. Maersk Air Cargo has popped up. CMA, MSC, they're all kind of getting into the air business. And really, it's a handful of reasons, right? It's a broader service offering, integrating the logistics. I think over the supply chain craziness of the last 2.5 years, there is opportunity when the vessels are full, where people are just out of necessity flipping things to air freight. These ocean carriers are smart people, and they're realizing if they are in that discussion and in the room where those things are happening, it can be spun and sold as integrated. The thing that you're noticing are integrated logistics. I'm noticing partnerships at first, right? They're aligning themselves with other air carriers, so they're not doing some acquisition yet. There's a few companies that are doing acquisitions and literally buying aircraft, but they're outsourcing it to companies to run and operate. You will see some more acquisitions in the future, and this is really starting to take off in the European market. So here in America, I think you're going to hear more about it, but it's kind of overseas starting first. The other thing that we've spoken about, Pete, which I think is the underlying most important thing, is if you own and control the rails, you can control your destiny. And so this is just another way where they own and control the high seas, and they're going to transition that into the air freight as they've seen that market grow. And the supply chain chaos isn't ending anytime soon. So it's a natural transition to other modes of transportation that these companies can afford to jump into. The ocean freight carriers can afford to jump into. And I think it's an interesting wave, and it will continue to happen. So that's my take on it. I think yours is a good dovetail. So let her rip.
Yeah. Well, Doug, you bring up all these great points here. You know, the opportunity that they have is incredible. These ocean carriers are flush with cash. And as they began to make acquisitions, particularly in the forwarding space, what they were probably pleasantly happy to realize is these forwarders that they bought, these integrators that they bought, the air freight was very profitable, lucrative. It filled in a lot of gaps where maybe in times of financial uncertainty, air freight always pulls them through. And I can say with a tremendous amount of my own personal experience, air freight's one of those things that just comes out of nowhere. You'll have an opportunity with a client who finds themselves in a desperate situation, and you make a lot of money out of nowhere, seemingly out of nowhere, and it's got nothing to do with you. It's got nothing to do with you other than you just happen to have space, and you happen to have a relationship with a carrier, and you have a customer who found themselves in a really bad position, and you were able to make a good deal. And that's what it was, and your customer trusts you, and you happen to have the best price in a pretty awful market, and you made it happen for them. And air freight is very lucrative. So now you've got these ocean carriers who bought freight forwarders, and those freight forwarders now have the backing financially of these behemoth ocean companies who are saying, "Wow, you guys like doing leases? Let's do a bunch of them." I'm like, really? You want to go out and get equipment? Yeah, why not? We do it all the time. Ship, plane, who cares? And they're going and they're doing it. And they're saying this is probably, given the way that economies go, there's probably going to be a pretty impressive opportunity once the ocean freight market dies down a little bit. Odds are the air freight market's going to come back. And you know what? They're right. Because if you look at it historically, air freight markets tend to go wacky when ocean freight markets tend to get quiet. And that's been the case for a long, long time. Air freight rates have been nuts for a lot of external reasons, but they're going to stay that way, even after the ocean rates tend to get better. Another thing that you bring up that I think when we talk about the rails, right? This is a situation where you can make a port anywhere. And port congestion up and down the East Coast, you are limited to the places you can bring a ship in. You're still limited on airports, but there's more of them. And you can airport shop. And because of the way these places are set up, you can say, I'm going to bring it into Toronto, and I'm going to drive it in bond across the Canadian border and bring it to the U.S. and distribute it. Or I'm going to bring it into Buffalo, or I'm going to bring it into Akron, wherever. But I'm going to make it work for me, and I'm going to use my rails, my internal ability to push things through based on what works for my client mix and the cargo mix. It really is. It gives you ability for more creativity, to have more artistic expression with it, which is probably a really weird way to put it, I guess. But these are the times that they've got the money, and they've got the people, and they've got the clients where they can probably pull it off, Doug. Now, unfortunately, leading into my topic, couldn't have picked a worse time. You've got very little faith in our infrastructure. You have carriers that were bailed out financially, then bailed out again during COVID, then bailed out again during COVID, so that they could keep their people working. And now, in a summer where everybody can't wait to fly somewhere, we just can't keep the planes moving because we didn't keep people flying. The money was picked up and the money was used to return profits to shareholders, not to keep people employed. And now they can't keep the planes moving. They can't keep maintenance going because they simply don't have enough people. The number of times I personally have been waiting on a flight and have been told it's been canceled or it's been delayed because we just don't have personnel for the equipment is ridiculous, Doug. And it's really insulting when this is happening at the same time that these carriers are celebrating just historical financial outcomes and saying to our faces, wow, things are great, aren't they? Just fantastic financially. You're like, yeah, they're great. I'm sleeping on the floor of Logan Airport because I don't want to go home because I got 4 hours before my flight to wherever it goes. And I've got British Airways telling me, if you want to fly to Great Britain or anywhere in Europe on us, please wait till September because, we can't sell more than 100,000 seats a day. And we're being told that all these carriers are overselling flights. They know that they can't operate them, but they're still selling the space on them, which to me sounds a little sketchy. And we don't seem to have any governmental oversight that's willing to call them on their bluff because they are truly the kind of industry that we really do rely on, and they're essential, and nobody wants to kick them down about it. It's a sad state of affairs, Doug, particularly when you and I work in an industry that relies on them, utterly relies on them to keep things moving around here.
Yeah, the congestion piece, Peter, your take on that is epic. And you travel a little bit more than I do, but my flight on Sunday was going to depart at 1:30. Got delayed, got canceled. They could book me on a flight 10 p.m. on Monday, so it'd be a whole other day and a half. So we ended up just saying screw it and buying a one-way ticket on another carrier. Pretty inexpensive, but the whole trip cost me an extra $250, right? And you know what? That sucks, and I complained, and we did it, and we moved on. So I think the congestion, the need, is greater than the frustration level that you have, and that's you and I speaking. And the cargo is the same way. It's like, well, we're doing the best that we can. It's crazy. And the last thing I'll say is the worst airport in the world to get stuck for over 12 hours is the Kansas City airport. It's horrible.
Kansas City. Oh, it's
horrible.
Awful. It's awful. Yeah, the way that security's set up for each individual little cubby hole, you go through it and then you're stuck there for the two gates and you got to go back out of it. And yeah, it's terrible. It's absolutely awful. I hate it. Best airports to be stuck. I mean, I've legitimately probably flown maybe 15, 16 million miles in my career. I got the points to prove it, man. The best ones to be stuck at long term. Definitely Minneapolis, St. Paul. Fantastic airport to be stuck at long term. Great services. Dallas, Fort Worth. Great one to be stuck at long term. And then again, my humble opinion, right? And I'm a huge fan of Charlotte. And here's why. Rocking chairs, lots of different options. And if you get stuck there, lots of places where you can stay overnight. I've never been able to not find a hotel room in Charlotte. But Kansas City's awful. LA's terrible. Absolutely terrible. JFK is awful. And LaGuardia is like getting stabbed in the heart. LaGuardia is a never-ending disappointment. Philly, terrible. And Miami is my own circle of hell.
Nice.
Frankly. My own circle of hell.
Well, that could be, a topic on a show, like the top worst airports, and we spin it. But I'll agree, Charlotte, and I was specifically going to say the rocking chairs. Charlotte's pretty legit. It's great.
Oh, they're great. Yeah,
it's
they're great. Yeah, and the smaller the airport, the worse security is because they're convinced that they're going to find, somebody from Al-Shabaab or something with, a nuclear device in their bag. But also some of those small airports, like, High Point and stuff. Sometimes the food is just awesome. The new New Orleans terminal is great. The food there is unbelievable. Like Dookie Chase and Cafe Du Monde and unbelievable. Like you can get legit food at that airport. It's almost worth flying through to eat. But Detroit, also great airport. The old Northwest terminal that became Delta.
I know.
Listen to me, man.
You're just rattling them
what
off.
A nerd I am.
You're rattling them off.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you got to remember, Doug, that for a solid 20 years, I flew probably 3 times a week, every week for my whole life. And then I was flying international for at least 2 weeks out of that month, every single month. That's all I did was fly. And now I just sit here and complain in my 8x10 home office. I just bitch and whine about not going anywhere.
Well, we'll have to spin that somehow. And I think that's going to shut us down, close us out for another edition of Global Trade This Week. Totally want to thank Ron Swanson. Sorry, Pete Mento, for being my co-host. I love the dynamic. And the fact that we agree on a lot of stuff, we certainly disagree on other, which makes the show interesting and fun for our audience. And Cap Logistics, bueno, thanks for taking care of us week in and week out. We can't thank you enough. So with that, Pete, enjoy your week, and we'll chat you up next week. All right.
See you next
Take
week,
care.
buddy. Thanks.